equity, and inclusion are appropriate topics for Rotarians to engage in and to take action around. And our district, like others around the world, are doing so. And we really got initially organized last summer, basically in June, the beginning of July. And it was at that time that the task force really kind of came together, and we've been adding members and throughout the course of the year to accomplish a couple of things. And probably job number one was education. We came to find that a lot of Rotarians were not perhaps as aware as they should be of issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also use the DEI task force as a platform to bring in speakers and to showcase different perspectives. And again, with an eye toward education and also a call to action, quite frankly. And then we really, in the most recent efforts, have been trying to find ways at the district level to provide accessible resources for individual Rotarians and for club committees that are committed to this work, so that we're sharing and learning together. We're not reinventing any wheels. And I am particularly pleased that Dave Spicer and David Della, who've been prominent leaders in this work all year long, are here this evening to talk about what that looks like and get practical, and also invest time tonight to answer some questions on what clubs can do to advance DEI. So thank you, Dave and David, for taking it from here.
Okay. Let's start.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay.
Would you like me to share the screen now?
Yeah, please. Yeah, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Well, and maybe I failed to make the introductions. I'm introducing you to David Della from the Seattle International District Club, and then Dave Spicer from the University District Rotary Club. Those are our two presenters, Dave and David, but I just want to make sure everybody knew where their home clubs were.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So I guess I'll start. Thanks everyone for being here, and thank you for having me talk about DEI initiatives and clubs. My name is David Della, and as Kathy mentioned, I'm a member of the International District Rotary Club. In fact, I'm immediate past president of the club, currently the membership chair, and then in the new Rotary year, I will be the community services chair for International District Rotary. And in addition, as Kathy mentioned, I'm part of the District 5030 DEI task force. Very happy to have been part of that and still part of that. And so I'll start with general presentation about what our club in the International District has been doing with DEI, and then leave the rest for any comments or questions. And I will also note that Heidi Topol, who is the chair of our DEI committee, is on this call in this meeting. So I will welcome her to add in anything that I missed, or any more detail that would be pertinent to this discussion as we go into the conversation piece. So let's go to the next page. Okay, so in the Seattle International District, we actually started this work pretty early on. In last summer, because of what happened with the protests and some of the issues around racism, there were a number of coalitions that were already in motion around town, some of whom reached into our service area, and in me particularly, to join in on some statements about Black Lives Matter and against racism and police killings of Black and brown people. And so So what that did is it launched a discussion within our club about what type of statement were we going to be supporting. Were we going to be supporting statements from coalitions? Were we going to be supporting a statement that different Rotary clubs were going to advance at that time? Or were we going to do our own statement? And so this was the formation of our committee in our club. It was formed in July 2020. And we had a twofold purpose. One was to prepare a statement for club approval. And then second was to recommend an action plan based on the statement to oversee its implementation. And so, so this process took about 2 months and 8 meetings for our total club to get involved in discussing not only what were we going to do to respond to the issues that were out there and the inquiries about our support for statements, to actually talking about what does this mean for our club. And so I say that only because what was required for us to really do this was the total participation of all of our club members, not just key individuals or leaders or board. It was our whole club. And so we brought our whole club through the process of forming our DEI committee in July 2020. And we came up with a twofold purpose. And then, so we said that when we did that, because it was going to be a total club initiative, that all club members were eligible for membership on this committee that we were going to form at any time. And the committee would act by consensus of the members taking action. And we'll maintain meeting of the minutes and present a written report and actions to the board at least annually. So, even at the beginning, we were thinking systematically, how are we going to set up the basis for our club to not only support, but get active in issues around racism and equity and inclusion. And so let's go to the next slide. So, so what we did is, first order was to come up with a statement or come up with the idea about how are we going to handle statements. So, so number one, we decided that we were not going to sign on statements from other coalitions because we wanted to be able to link that back to our work as a Rotary Club in the Chinatown International District. And then second, we had extensive discussion about signing on to the statement by different Rotary clubs, started by the University District Rotary Club. And I think the club, we decided that we were just going to be supportive, but we were going to come out with our own statement. And so that's what we did. So we came out with our statement about Black Lives Matter and in support of the Black community and BIPOC communities, about racism and police killing early on. And we took it through the whole process of discussion within the committee, within the board, and within all of our membership in the club. And we had great discussion, somewhat spirited, but great discussion nonetheless in talking about this. And so we came up with a statement, and it was unanimously passed by the board on September 22nd, 2020. And then we presented it to and approved unanimously by club members on October 19th, 2020. And so you can see that it took us a long time to go through this, but we thought it was necessary to go through that process. And it was very important if we were going to make this a central part of what we do and why we exist. And then we did a second statement that was more focused on Stop Anti-Asian Hate, which was posted on April 15, 2021, just recently. And we went through the same process of taking it to our leadership, the committee, taking it to our leadership, and taking it to the whole membership of the club. So next slide, and this is my last slide. So more important, along with the statement, is we came up with an action plan that we think really reflects what we're trying to do as a club and what we think our work is as Rotarians. And this action plan has 3 components: education and learning, membership, internal club operations. So with education and learning, what that meant is that we wanted to invite local community leaders as speakers to learn more about racial justice. And there are plenty of organizations and groups out there that have been doing this work for a long time, but we have not consciously asked them to come talk to us. And with this strategy, we did schedule them. We are scheduling them to come talk to us. The second is participate in district and interact with meetings on racial justice. And so, me being on the district task force was one level, but also we encourage club members to participate in any and all discussions and meetings about racial justice and any kind of activities that Rotary District was going to take up. We've been talking about conducting a book group and table discussions and breakout rooms in some of our meetings, before our meetings, to talk about this issue, to keep this on our radar screen, and to have members actively engage in this discussion as much as possible in every opportunity. And then the last is in education and learning is to research and maintain diversity census of the club. So we actually use this as an opportunity to conduct a census of our club, and we came up with some numbers. And what we did is we compared the beginning towards the beginning of the Rotary year 2020 and the end of Rotary year 2020, and looked at the numbers and got a better handle as to what the demographics and census data of our club was. And we did that because we want to make DEI a central format by which we act in our club. And so we have to start with our own membership. With membership, the main thing was to develop and implement a strategy to increase membership outreach to Black, Indigenous, people of color in our geographic area. And so traditionally our geographic area has been International District Chinatown. So now we have redefined that to include other ancillary areas such as Pioneer Square, Soto, Beacon Hill, and parts of Rainier Valley that are more north than south. And so we've increased what we consider to be our service area. And so we wanted to develop a strategy that really focuses in on DEI as a focus and lens by which we recruit new members to become members of our club. And then the third is the internal club operations. Integrate DEI is really the central point by which we do everything that we do in our club. What that included was is tie a close link between membership and how we run projects through our foundation. So what we did is we published a statement on our website with some goal achievements. We used a statement as a guide for our community service and vocational service committees. And just some concrete things that we've done on education and learning. In terms of the speakers, of the 14 meetings that we had in the Rotary half year, our speakers, 11 were in support of racial justice. And we've listed them on the website. So they came to talk to us about projects or issues that were closely related to racial justice. And so we brought those people in to speak. And then we used our opportunities for our scholarship, looking at scholarship recipients and the scholarships as a way to put a focus on DEI. And then the third is that we utilized our club business meetings on the 5th Thursdays of the months, whenever we have that, as a way to go back internal to look at where we're at with everything that we're doing in our club, putting DEI central to our club. Then we engage actively with Seattle University Rotaracts and everything that we're doing, including talking to them about our stance about DEI. And then the last thing that I want to note is that we think this work is so important that we want to include the DEI chair as part of our board. So whenever the board meets to discuss everything in the club, DEI is central to that, and it's linked to everything that we do. And so we've made that formal. Already to make the DEI chair part of our board. And so, so that's what I have in terms of the high level overview of what our club has been doing. And in the conversation, I will welcome Heidi's input and more particular ideas of what we've been doing during the conversation. So that's it with Mark.
Thank you, David. Great presentation. I really respect what Seattle International District has done. You know, many of us may not remember that back in 1986, we still did not have women in Rotary, and Seattle International District was a major force in making that happen. In fact, there are Rotarians still in your club, I think, David, who were part of that effort. So
Yeah.
kudos to all that you've done, and look at how women have reshaped and had huge impact in Rotary. So part of our discussion. Why don't we go to the next slide, Ryan? I am the immediate past president of University District Rotary. David and I served as president the same year. And I've been in Rotary for 34 years, and DEI has really gripped me. I feel really strongly about the work in this area. Last year, during the very end of my Rotary year, a number of us in our Rotary Club started having conversations, very informal, over coffee, over the phone, email, about the killing of George Floyd, and what do we as a Rotary Club, you know, of 100+ members do. And the conversation turned around, why don't we do a statement somehow in support of racial justice? So I probably had 30 or 40 conversations or email discussions about what that statement might look like. And ultimately we had a draft that was reviewed by a number of different people. And we had some pushback. We had some Rotarians feel strongly that it's too political. We can't go that way. Rotary can't be political. We had other Rotarians who felt like it didn't go strongly or go far enough. So we ultimately reached a compromise version that I think still had a lot of meat to it. And the board unanimously approved it on July 2nd. And at that time, I had conversations with, at that time, the exiting district governor, Bill McElroy, and incoming Kathy Gibson. And they both felt, and I agreed, that we should really have more discussions at the district level. So over the summer, I was part of a number of conversations with presidents of Rotary, and there was a lot of good conversation. In fact, there were some very challenging conversations. There were Rotarians who wanted to leave their club because they were so upset about adopting a similar statement. Other Rotarians didn't feel it was strong enough, but it was important to have these conversations. And Rotary International was encouraging us to have these conversations. And ultimately, through a series of dialogues, we had 12 different Rotary clubs, besides our club, adopt our statement. And many others created their own statement. You just heard from David Della, they created their own statement, had a number of conversations and discussions. So all really very important. And let me go to the next slide. So next slide, Ryan. Let's see, I think you're back. I'm sorry, back one statement. Maybe I missed it. Yeah, so what we did in the fall is, with the blessing of the board, we created our own DEI task force. And Jeff Withen, who's here, has been our chair. And we had a variety of discussions about what do we do? We have this statement, and it's a good statement, but it's only the beginning. What do we do in the way of action plan? So we had a lot of conversations. And the next slide, Ryan, kind of hits on some of the initiatives. We looked at our membership a little bit just to see where are we as a club. And this kind of vacillated, but basically we're a club of just over 100 members, and about 60% are men, or 60 are men and about 43 are women. I think that's changed a little bit, but we're roughly 60-40. We hope to reach closer to 50-50. We also have, which I think is really special, In the last 15 years of our club, 9 of our presidents have been women. So there's really been an effort and an interest to have our women in our club who are really phenomenal, have leadership opportunities, be presidents, be chairs of committee. So we really have, I think, done a good job of empowering women in our club. We also are unique in a sense. I don't know of another club with our composition that has 15 different nationalities. There probably are, but we have quite a variety of individuals, and it really enriches our club. The diversity, cultural, what we learn from each other. It's really had a big impact in our international service area. We have road trips every year to Ethiopia or to Vietnam. It's really a blessing. We have 4 African Americans. We have 7 Asians. Interestingly, we don't have any Latinx Rotary members. We need to do better in all these categories. We have, in the last 2 years, including the past year, which I think all clubs would agree, it's been a hard year about recruiting new members. We've had 8 new members this year, 12 last year. And we're glad to know that of the 20 new members, 7 are under 50, which is where the future of Rotary is. We all know that. So that's been good. So we looked at our membership. In the next slide, I can discuss some of our initiatives. We have really 4 core initiatives. One is the initiative we call Minority-Owned Business Initiatives. One of our Rotarians, Sun Michael Pham, whose background traced back to Vietnam, has really been connected to the minority community, really the Asian community. He's really promoted this idea, so we have adopted it. We've now had 4 different businesses. I think we have a 5th one that's going to be showcased at our meeting on Friday. These are all different businesses in the University District area that are minority-owned, African-American, Asian. We're looking for Latina. And what we try to do is we try to have our members become aware of these businesses, to patronize them. Many of them are restaurants, some are services. We also have the owner or a manager share for maybe 8 to 10 minutes at our club, at an actual club, what they're doing, a little bit of their background, a little bit of information about their business. We highlight it in our weekly bulletin. So we think this is a great initiative for different Rotary clubs to consider. Look at the businesses that are minority owned in your area of your Rotary. Think about a way to celebrate them, to support them economically. We have found it to be very special. We may even have new members come through this initiative, so that would be great. Our scholarship committee, we've had one for several years, and we really work to try to have our candidates be a wide variety of individuals, but we really feel strongly we need to expand that. We need to work even harder to get a diverse group of candidates. And one of our members who's here now, Tony Ives, has really committed a lot of time to trying to evolve that. And we have it's a thing in process. We want to be able to go to the local schools and attract more Hispanic, Latina, African American, Asian American, immigrant, refugee. And we have a very diverse pool this year, but our hope is to continue to build on it. And Tony has done some really great work in that area. Our work with membership committee, we're really been trying to build on diversity, but one of the things that we're going to adopt is a mentoring program where either the sponsoring Rotarian or another Rotarian in the club, who maybe is a veteran, can work with that new Rotarian, regardless if that's a person of color or not. We want to build the goal is we want these new Rotarians to feel welcomed, and especially if you're a person of color, different cultural background, we need to support them more. And so that's another way for Rotary clubs to be looking at trying to expand their membership and really have conversations about how do you attract and cultivate and be an environment that is a welcoming, open, inclusive environment. Then the 4th initiative is we've really tried to celebrate diversity within our club. So this is more recent, but we want to try to highlight cultural events, dates of significance that are important to our different members of color, different backgrounds. And I want to highlight something. I'm going to pull up our bulletin. We have a weekly bulletin, and I can't share it, but I'm just going to say, for example, some of the things we're dealing with is we're highlighting Asian Pacific Heritage Month this month for May. And we have 7 members in our club who are of Asian American background. And we have each one of them share a prominent person with their background to educate us about individuals. For example, we have Basant Singh, who is a past president of our club, born in Fiji. He's sharing about somebody who was a very active person from the Fiji Islands that none of us have ever heard, but was renowned in his community. Son Michael Pham from Vietnam is highlighting another individual from the Vietnamese community who's done some incredible, important work in the United States. So that's one thing we've been doing. We also, when I look at our bulletin, just this week bulletin, we have our, we highlight our minority-owned business that's coming up. Let me pull that up real quick. It's from the Broad Fork Cafe. Jeff Worthen, who's our chair of DEI, is highlighting that. This person, or the manager, will be speaking at our club this Friday, sharing kind of a short program. We're highlighting about Black Coffee Northwest. Just different ways. And so I shared, this is just 1 week, but my point is, use your bulletin, use your newsletter, whatever you have in the way of media, to try to educate and celebrate your club, celebrate the diversity, find ways to embrace diversity. And we find within our club that just having, having education, having action plans, it's made our club members even more embracing of diversity and equity and inclusion. And it's all good. Let's go to the last slide. I think we have one more. I'm going to ask Jeff Worthen to share a little bit, but I'm just going to say one of the things that's evolved, we have members in our club, but there are members from other clubs too. I think George Northern is here as well, our Northrop. Something that evolved with the Portland Rotarians, where they were having conversations every Saturday in the morning about issues around social justice. Jeff and others in Rotary decided, let's adopt the same idea and have our own programs on basically on social justice, but dealing with a whole variety of topics around policing or inequities in housing or inequities in education and health. They've had speakers like the Seattle Police Chief, Adrian Diaz, former Seattle Mayor Tim Burgess, others that Jeff can, and I'm going to just ask Jeff, why don't you take a minute, Jeff, just to share about this, because it's a great thing about education, but it's not just the education, it's also the conversations that go with it. Would you say a couple words?
Sure. Thank you, Dave. Sala Sweet, who is in the University District Rotary, brought this to my attention. She had been attending the meetings in Portland for quite some time. And so last November, we decided to give it a go here in the Puget Sound area, and it's been terrific. We've had a steady group of Rotarians, as Dave mentioned, from different clubs. District Governor Kathy Gibson's been attending as well. And the point of the Saturday morning meetings is to allow us to listen to someone speak on one of the issues referenced in the second bullet point there, as well as others, and allow us to ask questions in an environment that is not being recorded, in an environment that allows all of us a chance to talk, think, and carry the education that we've got, that we're getting forward, and acting upon it in a way that we feel is appropriate for us. Plus, it's been nice. I've had a chance to meet other Rotarians that I might not have otherwise had a chance to meet. So that's been a bonus, and it's been terrific, and we're planning on keeping it going. Thanks, Dave.
Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. So that's all I would have to share. I know we want to allow time for questions too.
Yeah, so at the risk of putting Heidi on, Heidi, could you add in anything that I might have missed or more detail into what our club has been doing to give the audience a full flavor of our work?
Sure, David. I think the most important thing that we're doing is reaching out to the community and asking for speakers who can bring information and learning to us. You know, we're all reasonably good readers, and we have considered book groups, and I'm not done with that yet. I still think we have an opportunity for some of that. But where I'm getting the biggest bang for the buck on this committee is hearing from speakers who are actively engaged in improving social justice issues, the way, you know, Dave just talked about them. And I would be interested in knowing how to sign up for some of those Saturday sessions. Dave, I don't know how to do that. But we're really, we're talking about it. I think we've shown up for a number of demonstrations in the ID around anti-Asian hate. And, you know, just this past weekend, we had Hinghey Park. We had a bunch of Rotarians show up for that and be part of the community with these issues. You know, I'm an older white woman, and, you know, don't hail from anywhere other than New Jersey, which is not a place that has a lot of cachet, but it's really important that we keep the topics out there, and we keep the committee engaged in this. I am thrilled when we have a committee meeting and we have, you know, 6 to 10 members show up and, you know, talk about these things. And we do it in a way that's respectful of each other, and we get things done because people want to get things done. And I think that that's a great testament to our small but mighty club.
Thank you, Heidi. So anything else? We want this to be a conversation. It could be questions and answers, but more important, a conversation. And if other clubs or people have ideas about what they would like to see with DEI, would encourage people to speak up, and we can talk about it.
Kathy Gibson has her hand up.
All right.
Thank you. I'm going to put my club hat on, and I'll say Seattle 4 has also been engaged in DEI, and one of the outcomes of our focus has been very intentional club programming this year. Probably 50% of our programs have had some type of DEI focus, and that's really helped raise awareness and educate and inspire people to action in our club, is through intentional programming.
Okay, thank you. Jeff?
All right. Sorry about that. David, David Della, I have a question for you. What kind of feedback, if any, have you had at the International District Club regarding some of the DEI initiatives that your club has undertaken going back a year ago and on and forward?
Oh, or some of the comments you mean?
Well, no. Has there been any? Have you had any Rotarians who have objected to the work that you're doing and have done, that it's too political, or something like that?
Yes, we had that conversation pretty early on, actually, when we were dealing with the first statement around that the university district was circulating for us to sign on, and then we were also considering other statements. So we did have that conversation. There were some members that felt that maybe we shouldn't, maybe this is getting too political, right? And so we had that discussion about, you know, but this is very important for our community. I mean, if we're going to be truly a service organization in the community, we need to be talking about issues that affect them, and even taking the step of becoming very active in those issues. So yes, we did have that discussion, but it was rich in a sense that it involved the whole club, and as much of the leadership of the club as possible to engage in this discussion, because we have never had this type of discussion in the club. I mean, we've all been focused on service and foundation and fellowship, but never something as, as substantial as race relations and racism, right? And so we did expect that, but again, it was something that was bound to happen, and but we handled it. I thought we handled it well in terms of hearing everyone and putting out a plan that we think that the majority of the club and people who weren't quite there could live with as we're trying to move forward. And again, as I always said, this is a journey, and our club is on a journey. And so if we're going to change, we have to expect that we have to take people along on this journey where they're at, and maybe even challenge them. They're thinking about, how we're trying to move forward on this.
If I can, I want to invite Tony Ives and also George Northcroft, who are also on the district DEI. I know George is with Bellevue Lunch and Tony's part of our UDIC. Share your perspective on the committee and some of the DEI initiatives as well. And then obviously other questions too.
Go ahead, George. Or I'll go.
I'll wait for you.
Okay. Today's been a long DEI day, right? George, Dave, myself, David Della. I mean, we've been on 3 different DEI calls.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to help Jeff with some of the workload on the DEI committee now as the co-chair or sub-chair. So I've been in this since the beginning with Kathy. When the invitation came out, it was a really great idea. And my struggle has always been action, let's go. And as Brenda Diamond reached out to me just an hour ago, she's like, patience. She said that, and I agree. And we're all on a journey, which son Michael likes to say a lot. So I've concentrated my efforts on the scholarship committee and trying to craft a statement with Dave Spicer's help and the committee's help, and also trying to get a diverse pool of candidates from all of the university district and even other parts of King County. And it's coming to fruition, actually, this goal. This weekend was kind of an incredible weekend where teachers and counselors and a couple of parents reached out to me to talk about this. And so to have Rotary be, as far as a scholarship, because education and learning is a lifetime goal. And if we can contribute to that, then it sets a foundation. None of this is easy. None of this is quick. And even like development, talk to Karma, it takes a while, it's not 4 years, it takes a while. So for our vantage, we'd like to measure results, try to find out if we're actually making a difference. I know diversity can be a little touchy-feely sometimes, but in something like the scholarship fund and other committees, we can measure how diversity, inclusion, equity initiatives actually impact what we try to do. Dave, I'm not sure, and Jeff, I'm not sure if
That's
good.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, and then I'll kind of follow up. And there's at least 3 or 4 other Bellevue Rotary Club members on this call. And what I would say is a lot of what the other clubs are doing, we're also doing. One of the things that at least 6 members of the Bellevue Rotary Club have been involved in, and Stan is on this call, I believe Stu is on this call, Nancy Pasnick, who is on this call, but she's also been involved with Peace Builders. But just recently, Stan and Stu and others have been part of a resource group. And the whole purpose of this resource group is to identify all the various resources available for diversity, equity, and inclusion, including websites, books, videos, podcasts, you name it. And we just had a meeting earlier today on how we can stratify that. And then Dr. Skip Rowland, who's not on this tonight, is also going to be developing a curriculum. So if folks are looking for something you want to do, we invite you to join the DEI resource group, because we see that as a way for individuals who are in clubs who may have some challenges of getting their club involved. We're putting this together so folks can determine where they are on this journey, and by going on this self-taught approach, be able to do that. One of the things we discussed just a couple of days ago, and I just want to tell you how fast we get response from our district governor. There was a need. We are at a point where we need a webcaster who can pull the things together that we want to do, and it'd be very user friendly. And so I was asked to approach our district governor, Kathy Gibson. I saw her last night at the social, asked her about it. She identified a webcaster. That webcaster will be working with us, and Stan, who's on this call, might be able to give you a little bit more what we're trying to do with that DEI resource group. And the reason I'm going to mention that, that's the one thing we've been involved in that we think is going to allow individuals who want to get involved, and then clubs who want to get involved, because there are a lot of individuals that don't have the backing of their clubs and they're looking for a place to go. This is one of those areas. So Stan, I'd like you to just talk about the resource guide and where we are and the things we're looking at.
Thanks, George.
Okay.
Stan?
Yeah, get myself
Are you with
unmuted.
us? Okay.
Yep, get myself unmuted so I can take in the chat.
Okay.
So, yeah, anyone that was at the last district gathering on Saturday about a month ago received a link to a slightly organized list of resources. So the group that George has made reference to, and about 8 of us now, are taking that list and beating it into shape so that it's categorized by all the different categories that you might want to search through it, and tagging things so that then we can have a web page that you can just type in, let's say you want, redlining in Seattle. You could put redlining in Seattle on our search page, and it would bring up all the documents that we have in those resources that relate to redlining in Seattle. So we are in the process now of getting everything categorized. George made reference to the fact that we needed someone who is an expert web designer, because it'll take about 10 hours for someone to take and prepare the web pages that will access this resource. But we view this resource as something that one can both reside on the district web page, website, but also that clubs can link to it. And if they want, they could actually make it a part of their website. So it's something that we want to make available for clubs to use in any way they want, and as well to be something that individuals can take and find a resource related to their specific interest.
Good. So we have 4 hands up, so I'll call on people. Karma, your hand is up. Have to unmute Karma.
I'm sorry,
Oh.
my mouse wasn't
There
cooperating.
you go.
I
Okay,
couldn't get to
good.
the unmute spot. So this is a bit of a comment and maybe food for thought. And I don't need to have you all address it as a question, but maybe address it when you go back to your committee meetings. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I sure understand where this came from and how, I'm part of the University District Rotary, and so I've talked with Dave and Jeff Worthen and Kathy and many people about this, but about where it came from. Jeff Worthen, thank you, Jeff, put an article in our club newsletter that just came out today, and it has to do with Pride Month coming up next month.
Mm-hmm.
And the LGBTQ plus community seems to be left out of DEI. And so the food for thought is that question intentional or accidental, or is it part of, we need to put that train car on the train to go along with it? I'm not trying to put out a challenge to anyone, but to just consider it. I know that we have many LGBTQ people in our clubs, and that diversity could grow to be a larger group as well. So I put that out there. I don't know if any of you have a comment.
Okay, so other hands up, Lisa, Liz, and Carl. So we'll start with Lisa.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I apologize if this is duplicative, as I did pop in a little bit late. But so my question is kind of around, so I'm from the Auburn Club, and you know, Auburn and South King County is a very diverse area, is that we are predominantly middle class, cisgendered, you know, able-bodied folks, and I know that DEI is a topic that we've broached, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, and want to be able to contribute to. But I also have this struggle of, you know, we are a group of people who aren't very diverse, you know, maybe trying to come up with solutions that might try to be helpful, but ultimately might just be very problematic because we don't have the experience or the knowledge to actually do like genuine DEI systems changes. So there's like that side. And then the other side is that also trying not to rely on our club members of color to, you know, actively teach us or lead the way or have to take on all of that work. And so, so I have heard, and I've taken notes on some really good ideas, but I guess my question is, like, when you are a group that doesn't have a lot of diversity, how do you make genuine change without it kind of being the checklist, check a box format, or, you know, actually problematic and not helpful? Does that, I hope that I articulated that okay.
You're muted, David.
Does anyone have a response to that? Or even a response to Karma's comment earlier before I move on to the next?
I have a response to.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
I'm glad you brought it up, because LGBTQ is something that we've discussed at the district task force level, and we've also had discussions about that at the Bellevue Rotary Club. I would think if Karma is interested in joining the group, and we can have some discussions around that to see what's the best way to include it. From discussions I've had and seen, I also understand that there's a club has been formulated that's just focusing on LGBTQ, if I'm correct or not, and more folks want to know about it. So if there's a way for us to bring that to the forefront, the folks that I know that I've worked with on this would be very much interested in doing that. So I would put that as a placeholder for something that us to have future discussions about, and do it in a way that it adds value. And just like the young lady before this talked about, we don't want to do things that just seem to be window dressing, okay? If you've seen what everybody has gone through so far, they've come up with resolutions, they've gone through a process, so things are intentional and things are well thought through, and you have people at the table that represents those areas that underrepresented. So I think LGBTQ is an area that we need to tee up. and put our thought process around just as we have with the others. And I agree that another thing that's important to us, when we want to measure what's the result, if we want to survive as an organization and we want to attract the younger generations, these are things that we need to be able to talk about and do it in a substantial manner and bring them to the table, or not bring them to the table, be welcoming them so they'd be willing to come to the table to give us some direction and guidance on those. So I hope I've addressed both of the two questions that just came up.
Well said. Thank you, George. Liz?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm co-chairing DEI on Mercer Island with Novelette Cotter, and I am the membership chair. So my goodness, the comments and I think maybe there could be a question in there, but the comments that I had all completely intersect with everything that you all just said. So one of the things that I'm very proud of about the company that I work for is that they chose, instead of DEI, the acronym that they chose was DINB, so diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And they did that because if you are treated equitably, you're going to feel like you belong. If you are being listened to, you're going to feel like you belong. And we've had a really difficult time getting DEI going at Mercer Island. There's been lots of rifts in our club. And so what I am just sort of loving about, if I just jump to the international Rotary level, is, for example, the last two webinars. One was intergenerationality and age differences. And if we want to bring new people in, you can't always stick them on a tech project because not all of them like to do that, right? Yeah. And then people with disabilities, we have strong people. I mean, we have people who feel so strongly about that, and like, well, what about my family members who have disabilities, and why aren't we talking about them? So as we sort of go along, I think my goal is really to bring the belonging piece into it, and making sure that every single one of my current members and every single one of potential new members feel that welcoming spirit and that open-mindedness in some way, shape, or form. And my only problem with DEI is that it can be so polarizing if you don't do it correctly, that you lose your ability and your momentum to move forward. So that's just my current thoughts in the last month or so.
Okay, thank you. So we'll do Carl and then Stan, and then so Carl, go ahead.
Okay, well, good comments, everybody. This has been a great conversation. Good to hear some updates on what U District and international clubs are doing. My question, well, I've got two questions. I'll break it down quickly. Budgets. It's budget season in Rotary. So what, if anything, has any of the clubs that are working on DEI initiatives so far had discussions about putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to DEI? Have costs been identified? Has there been discussions? I heard mention about scholarships earlier. That would certainly cost something. Changes to websites, social media, events, gatherings, workshops, training. There's a bunch of stuff that could cost something. Our club, Bellevue, is starting those discussions, but kind of struggling to identify where to go with that, or how to get things approved for budget dollars. Second part of the question is, I appreciate, David Spicer, your update on your club's diversity of where you're at and some of the nationalities that are represented. When I'm on Rotary International or our club DAC-DB site, the only statistics that we have for our club are member type, age, and gender. And there's something missing, right? And it's everything that we're talking about right now. So I guess I would say, let's raise this up the flagpole. I saw you nodding your head, Kathy. I think a few others. Let's see where we can take this. Like, let's get some statistics for our diversity. Age is already there. LGBTQ statistics, and so on and so forth. I think that's a huge thing to help we can set goals, but to be able to achieve them, we have to know where we're at on any given day with our membership.
Yeah. Okay.
I can share something just in response to Carl. We have at University District Rotary, we've had a scholarship program of about 30,000 over the last many years, maybe 6, 7, 8 years, typically 5,000 per scholarship. We kind of have modified that. But in terms of the other initiatives that we were talking about, like the MOBI one, the minority owned business, no dollars, the program stuff, no dollars. I don't see that, and maybe I'm just being naive here, but I don't see dollars having to drive the DEI. I think there are ways to do it creatively that are not a line item budget. Maybe David Della has a different perspective, but that's been our experience with our club. I could see us doing more scholarship dollars. I'd like to see that, but in terms of the other initiatives that we've launched, there's no dollar piece to it.
Yeah. And, just in response to that is, remember when on my presentation, we had 3 goals, right? Education learning, which is external, membership, internal, and then internal club operations, and the link to vocational and community service. And so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to institutionalize the idea that everything flows from DEI in all that we do, and even how we pick projects, how we fund them, has something to do with DEI. And so we've done that to promote that idea of that's a type of change that we need to have, and we've institutionalized that by putting the DEI chair right in the board. So when we're talking about budgets and we're talking about programs for community services or vocational scholarships, we have that kind of framework mindset in mind about how we're going to put those dollars to work in the community. So Stan Keel.
Okay, just a quick response to the question of how do we pursue learning about this if we're primarily a white, maybe privileged group and not put the burden on a few people of color or other marginalized communities to educate ourselves. And what we've seen amongst many of the people that we've been working with in Bellevue Rotary is a willingness to study, to say, okay, what movie can I watch? What book can I read? What TED Talk can I listen to? And so that just taking the initiative to take and go find information, to read, study, and view is a way to not have to rely upon people of color to educate us. At the same time, you may have a good friend that is willing to take and work with you, and that's a reward, but the self-study, and that's where this resource that George made reference to that we're working on, and the goal is to have that out and available, easily accessible in 3 months. But if anyone wants that list in its current form, I can send it to you. But I would advocate strongly for self-study, movies, videos, TED Talks, etc.
Okay. Trip Hart, Enumclaw.
Hello, folks. Well, what Karma and Lisa talked about, I think that those groups, the LGBTQ and the disabled groups, they're going to be brought into the fold in short order. Just the fact that this kind of really started with the George Floyd and the discrimination that Blacks suffer, but the BIPOC whole group has really gotten the notoriety over the last several months, and it's really sort of driven the DEI type of momentum. And so I'm fairly confident that those other groups will be brought in. And Lisa, if you think Auburn's got a problem, I mean, come out to Enumclaw. I mean, lack of diversity is a real big problem for us. And we really, I think it's going to be great. I mean, these Saturday programs have been wonderful, and really learned a lot through those. And I appreciate the fact that these other websites have blueprints for us. We might be focusing a lot more on education for a while before we really get to a call to action out here. But I really appreciate that this group is meeting and has ideas for us, and that resource group sounds really interesting for us, and I hope to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Trip. District Governor Kathy.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. And what I'm going to bring up is going to reinforce what Liz was talking about. Our DEI committee at the district level I did a little kind of brainstorming planning session, I'm going to say about 2 or 3 months ago, and we developed a word cloud. What were we trying to accomplish? And belonging was the most common word. So even though we're talking DEI, the outcome that we're looking for, the result we're looking for, is a sense of belonging for all. So I just wanted to give a shout out to you, Liz, on that comment. And we're working hard on this.
Beautiful.
So did I get everyone that had their hands up? Are there more? And then also finally a time check. Is everyone all right with still being on the call? We're past 7:30. We can still continue if people want to. Have I missed any hands? Let's see. If I did, go ahead and speak up, someone, and then I can.
It's not letting me remove my hand, but you got to me, David. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm getting everyone the opportunity to say something.
Yeah, I think you got them all, David.
Okay. Any last word? Anyone? District Governor Kathy or Dave? Any last words?
I would just.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
I was just going to say, echo what David said, what Kathy have said. This whole, the Rotary effort around DEI, or I like the term belonging to, is, 1 year that Rotary has been starting to embrace this. And, should it have been happening years ago? Yeah, it should have been years ago. But it at least it's happening now. And I find it, frankly, really refreshing that Rotary is starting to embrace these issues, having some challenging conversations. Some of our Rotarians are challenged by these conversations, but they're really important. So I just encourage Rotary Clubs to think about initiatives, action plans. I'm happy to be a resource, happy to have copy if anybody wants to. I'll put my email in the chat box, but it's all, we start with single steps. And when I look back where we were in May last year with the murder of George Floyd, and where we have 12 months later, there really has been progress. So I'm very heartened by that. And so even if there are Rotary Clubs that are still at the infant stage, those things can change. All they need to do is kind of educate, inform, take some baby steps, and things will evolve. And I promise you, it'll be, a more enlightened, more positive, more embracing, more exciting, more dynamic Rotary Club by embracing these issues. So that's all I would offer. But I'll put my email in the chat box right now.
Okay. District Governor Kathy, do you have any final words to close us off?
I just underscore what Dave just said. That's great.
Great. So what I'll just say is that, again, we're on a journey that we started. And in my mind, there's no turning back. But I think I think we do it in a way that we bring as many people along as possible on this journey where they're at. And so when we talk about DEI, I think some clubs have DEIs, some are going to form DEIs, and we're all here to help do that. If some clubs don't do that right away, that's okay. I think the important thing, we've all said this, is we have the conversation. We're open to talking about this, and we're open to change the way that we do things that will facilitate inclusion and equity and diversity in everything we do. So I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, being on this journey, and look forward to marching forward.
Here.
Thank you, David.
Well done, David and Dave. Well done.
Everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for everybody for joining us.